Okay, cricket. Joe Root has stood down, fell on his sword, some might say. As England Test captain, has been pretty much the only England player recently to make any runs, but unfortunately England has only won one of their last 17 games. Root has announced that he is stepping down. He will stay, obviously, in the side and just focus on his batting, which he's been doing a pretty good job of. I think in the current World Test Championship, he is about 400 runs ahead of second, who's Usman Khawaja at the moment. So definitely not affecting his ability with the bat. Although, we were speaking about it a few weeks ago. The English media, they wanted Joe's head. Essentially, very upset with the performances that the boys have been putting out. Notably, just losing in the West Indies to a far less fancied side in the West Indies. We all know what happened down here over our summertime. 4-0 was only 1 wicket away from getting whitewashed down here, 5-0. And before that, a series lost to India and in England. So a pretty fruitless sort of 18 months for the English cricket team. Boys, what are our thoughts around this?
It didn't help his chances as well. They're also on the bottom of the ICC table, which, for England is not where they want to be. They want to be competing in the top four. So I think we talked about it last week with the writing on the wall, but there was no better options. And I don't think that's changed in a week.
No, nothing has changed in a week. No one has cemented their spot as a forerunner to overtake the position. Ben Stokes most likely,
which is what we said.
Yeah, will be the replacement.
It makes the most sense. Good friends, of course, with Root. But whether
it makes sense, kind of like we know.
But he's only just come back as well.
He's only just come back from extended period off. He's fiery. We like that about Ben Stokes, I suppose. In that he wears his heart on his sleeve. But is that the captain quality that you want? Maybe he's passionate. He's very passionate. Whereas Joe can sometimes seem a little bit disinterested at times, but considering Ben has been in the news for the wrong reasons throughout his career, and Joe essentially had a squeaky clean kind of record. He also captained the most games for England out of anyone in Test history, which is pretty unbelievable considering their long Test history, and he's not really even that old.
31.
And he's 31. Interesting. What have we done with our life?
Started a podcast.
And his record up until this last 18 months was outstanding. He finishes, I think, with 28 wins, 11 draws, 27 losses off the top of the head. So to think that they've only won one out of their last 17, if you look at his record 18 months ago, 2 years ago, it was an unbelievable Test record. Is it his fault that England have gone on this run when he's making all the runs? Is it his captaincy that's let them down? No, I've said it before on the podcast. I think it's the other sticks that aren't helping out. Their bowling's been pretty good. Outside of himself, Bairstow's made runs a few times. Stokes made a few runs, but has been out of the side for quite some time. It's the rest of that top six which haven't stood up at the Test level.
Yeah, I think... when he came into the captaincy, he probably had some of the back end of some of the guys there with their career and they really haven't got anything to come through new. And you can see they're a young team that definitely need new guys to come in, new blood to come into that team and build around. And you want, your Archer, Stokes and Root is kind of your veterans there to then help guide those guys come in. But they're just not there at that kind of space yet. And all those other guys there are kind of, above average in that squad. You wouldn't be pinning them as captain. And Stokes makes the most sense from a talent perspective, but like you say, you're going to make him the face now, and all that scrutiny that Root has been struggling with, you're going to get and give on Ben Stokes
for a guy who's just come off a mental health break.
Yeah, exactly. Who's passionate? Yeah, definitely. And when the results aren't going their ways, it's not going to be a great result for them. So
it's pressure, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a pressure position to take over. We all know down here what the Australian Test captain, the scrutiny that they come under. I can't imagine what it's like in India. It'd be like Australia or England on steroids.
Yeah, well, England for cricket for the English fans is definitely one of those sports they know they're good at. We'll hope they're good at. All the others, not so much.
That's a bold statement, even around cricket.
I know. I'm just getting stuck in English fans. It's all right. So it's it is going to be interesting the way they go forward. So that only leaves now Kane Williamson as well as the Fab Four.
Yeah, Fab Four.
As the captain.
So Coley, Smith, and Root all
for kind of very different reasons.
Yep.
So it's Kane Wilson probably looking over his back now, just make sure nothing's coming his way.
I don't think he's got too much to worry about.
He shouldn't. But then, we said the same about the others.
They did lose to Bangladesh.
Yeah, exactly. The results are important, and if you go on a 1-17 streak, you don't last very long.
Have you seen the way that the Poms do their odds? It's different to the way that we do it and the way to the Yanks. They do it as fractions. So the fractions, they kind of make sense when it's to 1. They've got Ben Stokes listed as 8 to 15, which you may as well just say 2 to 1. He's a $2 favourite to be the next captain. Outside of that, they had Sam Billings at 8 to 1, which I thought was kind of interesting considering he's only played a handful of tests. We saw him come into the side in the Ashes, played quite well, has a lot of white ball experience.
Is he the youngest out of the options?
No, I think, he's not even on the... He's the youngest out of the options that I've got listed there, out of these top 6. Yes, he is the youngest. There was a little bit of chatter around Ollie Pope being...
he's been in and out of the side. So.
Yeah, but being earmarked as a future captain. He's not 24. So remember how we were talking about, maybe Rohit Sharma passing on to Rishabh Pant or something like along those lines.
Maybe that's what they think with Stokes.
That could be similar. That could be a similar kind of thing here, getting ready for someone that is really young. The other names in the hat were all old guys, especially Stuart Broad, who is listed at 10 to 1. He's close to retirement, but has a wealth of experience under his belt. James Vince is 10 to 1, who hasn't been in the side. Moeen Ali, who plays a fair bit of Test cricket, is also 10 to 1. And I thought Johnny Bairstow a little bit long at 12 to 1. I thought he may have a sniff at this role. Again, all these guys kind of come, second fiddle to the obvious favourite being Ben Stokes. The other, this was something that I hadn't considered and came up in a group chat as well, is Owen Morgan, who is the white ball captain. He hasn't played a Test match in 10 years. That's a little caveat there. But if they wanted to go for an India and unify and have someone lead, just for the time being, the problem is, I suppose, with Owen is he doesn't play much red ball cricket, and his Test average from the 10 years ago where he only played a handful of tests, I think maybe 16 off the top of the head. He averaged 30 with the bat. So a little bit lackluster. However, current English guys, that's pretty much that's all you need to get in the side unless you know Joe Root. Yeah, exactly. That's par. That's par for the Poms at the moment. So they're kind of all the candidates. Obviously, Ben Stokes, the favourite, but wouldn't surprise me if something a little bit left field comes in, just given the varied history that Stokes has had on and off the field. We had the incident, with the assault a few years ago where he had to take time away from the game because of that. The mental health break and the rest of it. Obviously, a very talented cricketer, one of the best all-rounders in the world. But is he in the right headspace right now to take on, a high-pressure role in being the captain of England? Who knows? It's going to be an interesting one going forwards.
Yeah, and chat, of course, is hating on all the English players we have been mentioning. So, but I don't think there's many options. I think that's the problem. And it's not just captains wise; it's for the team. Like they're just struggling with talent.
And then it goes back to why has all this pressure been put on Joe in the first place? Yes, you could question some of his more defensive tactics, sort of looking to play for draws more so than being aggressive and going for wins. Yes, you could be critical of that. But the guy carries that side. Like, without Joe Root,
when Ben Stokes wasn't there, he was the only one.
Exactly right.
If you're picking the 11, you're just like, well, we'll start Root.
Root was the only guy. And then I suppose on a green swinging deck, you'd have Anderson and Broad kind of listed. Although they do like to chop and change with their bowlers. Root was the only guy that every single Test match would be the first name on the paper.
True.
So it's a puzzling situation. We've seen this kind of carousel and circus down here of late after Sandpaper Gate and the Dick Pic Gate with Tim Payne and Root. It's kind of nothing off the field, or I suppose Sandpaper Gate was on the field, but it was something against the spirit of the game. This is just performance based, and it's a strange one in that he's by far and away their most talented cricketer and has produced for them on the field in spades over the last few years, but they're just not getting the results.
Yeah, and whether some of that's his captaincy, and that's what the boys in the chat are talking about. It's like maybe he wasn't, strong enough as a leader or strong enough with his strategies or the, field positions, et cetera, whether that was what let them down and what maybe led to some of their losses. But
yeah,
I also don't
just forget the 1,150 runs that he's made in the current ICC WTC.
I think he did everything he could with
the the calendar year that he had last year, and all kinds of records, and the average in the mid 60s over the last few years.
He does need
forget about all that. He wasn't a great leader. I just think
he's still in the squad.
Best
He's not getting dropped.
No, but I just think he's the best that they had.
Yes, I agree.
And the best they still have, arguably.
Yes, also still agree. Yeah, so, and it does take 10 other blokes to win a cricket match.
Exactly right. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. We've got a fair few guys now that are going to be in the same boat. We just spoke about the other three from the Fab Four. Kohli, has only just sort of stepped down from the captaincy of India, so it's a little bit too early to tell how that will affect him going forward. Smudge has been out of the role for quite some time.
He's semi-de facto at the moment when incumbents get to, you can see it. Like, he's definitely getting some words in there.
That's right.
Well, do you reckon Kohli and now Root will have a similar sort of role as Smith as well? Like, still sort of de facto.
He's got the experience.
Still leading a team, just not the face, I guess.
Yeah, I think on the field, like in terms of setting the field, they both will have had a role. It's just more so about facing the press and doing all the off-the-field stuff and taking the responsibility. But yeah, poor Joe Root. I feel sorry for him. It's pretty unusual that you'll hear those words come out of my mouth, that I feel sorry for an English cricketer. But in this instance, I kind of do. Look, if you go back and look at some of those decisions through the Ashes, and especially some of the ones in India, you could see a few holes in the captaincy. Our mate Ian Chappell loved to harp on about how shit Joe Root was as a leader.
Yep.
But when you're the only person, that's actually performing for your country, at least with the bat, I do think he's been dudded a little bit here, and it's a little bit of death by media.
Well, final point on that. Did he walk, or do you think he was going to get pushed?
I think it was the old tap on the shoulder. Yeah, I think the old, let's have a private meeting. You can write your statement. I think it was him falling on his sword, being asked by the board to do so.
Yeah, I agree. If he wasn't going to do it, he was probably going to get shoved.
Yeah, he was pretty adamant that he was happy to keep on staying on as captain in short term, and then so it must have been they just tapped him on the shoulder.
How keen was Joe Root to be captain in the first place?
I imagine you'd be thrilled if
I would have thought so too.
Coming in to the role after a really strong period in English cricket history with Cook and Strauss just making runs wherever they went, Broad and Anderson in their prime.
He did come into it at a good time, I think, as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I was saying, with the numbers, he's still finishing. He's 42% including draws, but he actually still has more wins than losses, despite their terrible performances over the last 2 years. Yeah. So he actually still finishes with a reasonable record, and the most games captained. Like we said, how old's English cricket? 150 years, and he's finished as the most capped skipper. It's one of those things, isn't it? You remember the end of Ricky Ponting's captaincy and the end of his career, and everyone turning on him. People do have short memories, but I suppose the other argument is, look, you're the leader, you're the one that has to be responsible, and at the end of the day, you need results. So that's what it's come down to. We'll keep an eye on it as it unfolds in the coming weeks, but it looks like Ben Stokes most likely takes over, or one of those names that we did mention.
Yep.